This is my musical review of South Pacific by Joshua Logan and Oscar Hammerstein. The message behind South Pacific. The story of South Pacific has two love stories between Nellie, an optimistic American Navy nurse, and Emil, a well-established Frenchman, with a secondary story of Liat, a Tonkinese girl, and the American Lieutenant Cable. The purpose of these relationships were to target prejudice towards interracial or cross-cultural relationships, since at the time they were uncommon and unacceptable. There were a lot of mixed perspectives on the topic of racial integration, but not a lot of people were okay with it, in comparison to today where it was widely accepted. The point was to represent these relationships for how they really were at the time, with the added element of prejudice and how it can negatively impact the current situation when, in reality, you should be able to love whoever you want, regardless of skin color or cultural background. You've got to be carefully taught. This was the most impactful song in the musical, in my opinion, because it calls attention to the current attitudes towards the topic of mixing race. As mentioned before, there was a lot of controversy surrounding the song because people didn't think mixing race was appropriate. The song elaborates that this type of ignorance is taught and not a trait given at birth. In most cases, it is taught to individuals at a very young age, not to like those who are different. Having these attitudes taught at such a young age would follow these children around for their adult years, limiting potential friendships or relationships through discrimination. What I liked about South Pacific. I liked this one because it matched my personal expectations of the musical in the sense that it wasn't hectic. There was singing while acting instead of an intense dance routine. It was very relaxed, the props were very scenic and contributed to the elements of the stories, the singing was peaceful, and there wasn't too much going on at once, so it was easy to follow. The other two musicals, in my opinion, had a lot going on at once and got straight to the point of their problem and then ran it into the ground. South Pacific had a lot more background to it, with the matter of Emil's wife, children, and why he had left his old life, Nellie's life and mother back in Little Rock, and the mention of Lieutenant's wife or girlfriend back at home before he pursued his relationship with Liat. It was just more up to my speed in terms of events and how they tied into the plot. What I didn't like about South Pacific. One thing I didn't like was Nellie's sudden change of heart towards being with Emil and his children. It seemed forced instead of her genuinely wanting to be a part of the family since she was highly against it in the first place. I also understand that they wanted to draw attention to how men may fetishize foreign women or only look at them as an experience, like the captain did, rather than a person. It's good to spread awareness, but the concept itself makes me uncomfortable. I will say that other musicals offered more energy than South Pacific, and though South Pacific had its moments of excitement, it could have been more powerful. When Nellie and Emil hit turmoil, it seemed to happen too fast and too blandly. It could have been done in a more argumentative fashion. Emil should have gave her the flowers to her face so they could have resolved the issue then and there, which would have made for an easier transition into her joining their family. Personally, it was time-weird and done way too fast. And that was my review of South Pacific, covering the controversies and personal opinion on the musical. Thank you for listening.